Hello, my name is Matt Bird, and welcome to the PublishU podcast, where we feature the real life stories of authors from around the world. Today, I'm joined by Lisa Tasker from North Wales, who has written a book, Mums Who Pray. Lisa, you are very welcome.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Well, we want to hear all about your book, but more importantly than that, we want to hear all about you. So please tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. I was a police officer for 25 years. Before that, I had been an art student. I had a dramatic encounter with God, and He turned my life around, delivered me from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. I ended up meeting and marrying my husband within 12 weeks, and we now have three amazing children. I live up in the hills in Wales, in a really beautiful location. I keep chickens, I keep bees, and I'm just kind of enjoying retired life.
Oh,
Although it's very
wonderful.
busy for retired life.
Yeah, so you make your own honey, or the bees make the honey and you
Yeah, they
harvest it.
do. It's amazing. Amazing. Taste the
Wow,
flowers, just beautiful.
incredible.
Yeah.
And what other livestock do you have besides bees, if you can call them livestock?
Yeah, I've got chickens, ducks, cats. I like to grow my own veggies as much as I can, and yeah, just enjoying the beautiful wildlife up here. We had hares in the field behind us yesterday, and it's just beautiful, beautiful,
Amazing.
worth all the hard work.
Absolutely. And your book, Moms, I should say, Moms Who
Promise
Pray.
and pray, yeah.
Um, what first inspired you to write it? What was the moment that you thought, I'm going to write a book?
It was actually born out of adversity, Matt. It was actually born out of a very difficult time. All three of my amazing, beautiful adult children they were all going through relationship breakdowns. And so it was a very challenging time. But what made it worse was I was helping to look after an elderly parent, um, and I literally felt like that person was particularly difficult, and I literally felt like the life was being sucked out of me. So when it became apparent that all this stuff was going on around my kids, I just felt exhausted. I was emotionally and physically exhausted. So I just thought from my history. I knew I had to cry out to God in prayer. I knew that was the way forward because even though I had been a safeguarding professional, I knew that I couldn't control what was going on around me, and I knew that God was the answer. And I've got a history with God. Like I say, He delivered me from the kingdom of darkness, brought me into the kingdom of His light. He delivered.
Lisa, you've used that phrase a couple of times now.
Yeah,
Now, not everybody listening is a kind of into religious jargon.
yeah, yeah.
So could you just, more common language, what do you mean? Tell us in more common language.
Yeah, so the Bible talks about how we become a new creation in Christ. And when I committed my life to Christ, that's exactly what happened to me. I went from being this rebellious art student to actually having the desire to become a police officer. It was a whole change of life. I literally became a new person. But in my past, my family were very involved they would have called themselves Christians, but they were very involved in the occult. And so my life was not good. It was not good. And I was in a very dark place. When I committed my life to Christ, my life completely turned around. Um, and I became very aware of spiritual warfare. And so I knew that what was going on, well, what sort of made me realize that actually we were in a spiritual battle was the elderly parent that I was helping to look after spoke to one of my sons, asking, which one are you? But it wasn't that person's voice. And I knew, and that person had been heavily involved in the occult in the past. And so I knew that there were things in the invisible realm that were operating against me and my family. And so I knew I had to go into a deeper relationship in prayer, and learn what was operating, because the Bible tells us that we don't, we're not fighting against flesh and blood, but against powers and principalities. And so I had to identify what was coming against us, and then I had to go to the scriptures to find out what I needed to do to deal with those things. So while I was doing this, while I was praying and whatever, I was in the garden one day and digging, and the words "mums who pray" kept going through my head. And often the Lord talks to me like that, and I just carried on digging. And but all day, "moms who pray" kept going through my head. The following day, although over the next few days, I got the words ipso facto, which is not a term that I would normally use. So I knew God was talking to me. And I got Braxton Hicks. So eventually I just sat down. I said, "Okay, Lord, what is it you're trying to tell me?" And he just said to me, "It's a book." So I felt that I was inspired to write the book, but I also felt that I was kind of mandated to write the book, because I just knew in my heart that the days when I realized, when I was at my hardest, when things seemed the worst, when things seemed the most difficult, I knew I could turn to God in prayer because of
Yeah.
my history with God. But my
Mm.
heart went out
Okay.
to people who don't have that, and maybe are young in their journey with Christianity and don't know what they can and can't do. And I just thought I want to share what I've learned.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you wrote your book.
So I wrote my
So
book.
you did the Writing My Book course, Lisa.
Yeah.
Let's turn to that. What was it that you sensed was what was difficult for you at the start? What stopped you from writing the book? And how did the course help you overcome that?
Um, to be honest, Matt, I don't think I've told you this before, but I didn't know how the book was going to end. A lot of the people that were on the course seemed to know the beginning of their book right through to the end, but I was still on that journey of discovery. I was still finding out what was operating and how I needed to deal with it. And I also started to go through a healing journey from childhood wounds. So it was quite sort of emotional at times, but it was not knowing how the book was going to end. That was the challenging bit. But what was encouraging was that other people on the course shared their challenges, and a lot of them privately messaged me and were just so encouraging. And that really helped me to, well, to finish the race, really. But I would say, I think Publish You and the way that you are really helped me as well, because you have a very disciplined approach. And at the end of the day, discipline produces results. And it's having that discipline, that structure, that makes you keep pushing through. And I think we were all a bit petrified that you were going to say, "Well, why haven't you done more words than that?"
Well, it's
So
amazing, Lisa, isn't it? It's some people will say they want to do something, but they're not really willing to do the work. They're like say, "Oh, I'm going to get fit,"
mm,
but then they don't feel like going to the gym and they don't
yeah,
bother going to the gym.
yeah,
Or they say they want to learn a language, but then they don't
yeah,
study the language or visit the country.
yeah, yeah,
And it's the same with a book. If you only write a book when you feel like it, you never finish it. And that's why so many people in our world have the aspiration to write a book,
yeah,
but they actually never do it or never finish it because
yeah,
they don't do the work.
yeah,
And
yeah.
having that structure and that support just helps you keep focused and get
Definitely.
through to the end.
Definitely. And the private messages from other people that were on the course, there's some great people, and just, such a blessing, and
Yeah.
and just the right word at the right time, because I won't lie, it was at times very challenging, and I told you that, it's very difficult, even though we live up a mountain, it's very difficult to get quiet in my house, and so because of animals, because of parrots and dogs and cats and whatever else. So I found that the best time for me to actually work was to get up at sort of like 3 o'clock in the morning. But
Right.
I'd already got into that habit of getting up at that time to pray. So, and I found that to be most effective. So it was easy enough for me to get up to pray and then to turn on the laptop and do some work. So that's what worked for me. And I think we've all just got to be willing to be flexible in how you work. I couldn't be terribly structured in how I work. I just had to make sure I kept doing it. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and that's it.
beautiful, beautiful. And so, Lisa, as we wrap up today, what is your hope of what the book achieves?
Yeah, well, like I say, on some of the darkest days, because, the darkest day for me was when one of my sons told me that he said, "Mom, I don't want to be here anymore." And I knew exactly what he meant. And I could have just fell apart on that day. But I just thought, no, I know what God has done in my life. I've got too many testimonies that I share in the book about the goodness of God, about supernatural encounters, divine interventions. And I thought, no, God's got this, and so I want to encourage mums, parents, grandparents, that, don't be moved by how things look. You've got to push in, you've got to pray, you've got to engage with heaven, you've got to rely on the goodness of God, but also use the authority you have as a believer and speak the word of God and do what actually the Lord tells us to do. You know, you can't be passive when you're in spiritual warfare. You can't. And there was no way I was going to allow the enemy of our souls, Satan, to steal my children. And
Mm,
so the battle was on. So I just want to share with people, look, this is what I've learned. This is what you can do, because hopefully they won't have to go through some of the difficult
yeah,
times that I went through. They can jump ahead.
yeah.
But also this book it's a legacy for my children, that they will know this is how you can walk in victory.
Mm,
So
beautiful.
yeah,
Lisa, thank you.
you're very welcome.
And thank you all for listening to the PublishU podcast featuring the genuinely real stories of authors from around the world. If you're interested in writing a book like Lisa, then please do reach out to us, www.publish.com, publishu.com, and we'd love to speak to you. And if you enjoyed this broadcast, please subscribe for more. Thank you so much for joining us, and goodbye for now.